Dear brothers and sisters, good evening. There is a mystery embedded in the storms of life, in the midnight hour of your soul, in the silent pain that no one sees. It's the moment when the waves rise, when the winds scream, and the light seems to vanish from your path. It's in those very moments, when everything seems lost, that a door appears, not a door built by man, not a door of opportunity or escape as the world sees it, but a door of divine hope, and that door has a name, Jesus. From Genesis to Revelation, God reveals himself not as one who watches suffering from afar, but as one who walks into it. When Adam and Eve sinned, when they were cast out of Eden, it was not the end. The very moment judgment fell, so did hope. A promise was whispered in the garden. A seed would come, a deliverer. The door was already opening. When Israel groaned under the weight of slavery in Egypt, when the cries of the oppressed rose like incense to the heavens, God moved. He raised up Moses, split the Red Sea, and brought deliverance. But before they ever crossed through the waters, he gave them blood on the doorposts. A lamb was slain. The angel of death passed over. Do you see it? Even in the darkest night, God mocked his people with a door of mercy. That blood, a shadow, that deliverance, a sign. The true door was still to come. Centuries later, in Bethlehem, a place whose very name means house of bread, the bread of life was born. Not in a palace, but in a manger. Not clothed in royalty, but wrapped in swaddling cloths. Why? Because he came not to rule over man's strength, but to redeem man's brokenness. The angels announced peace not to the powerful, but to shepherds on a hillside. The heavens opened because the door had come down to earth. Jesus walked the dusty roads of Judea, not looking for the righteous, but for the shattered, for the leper cast outside the camp, for the bleeding woman who dared not speak, for the prostitute who wept at his feet, for the demented, for the tax collector, for the thief, for the broken. He didn't just offer them hope. He became their hope. When the world gave them no place, he became their place. He said, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved. And not might be, not could be, will be. And yet this door would not be opened in a temple of gold, but on a hill called Calvary. Nails were driven. Blood was shed. The earth trembled, and the veil in the temple was torn. In that single moment, the barrier between heaven and earth was broken. He was the Lamb. He was the door, and that door was opened wide. Why does it matter? Because trouble is coming. For some, it's already here. Trouble in your mind, depression that clings like chains, trouble in your body, sickness that drains your strength, trouble in your relationships, betrayals, silence, pain, trouble in your spirit, a dryness, a distance, a doubt you don't dare speak aloud. But hear this, the existence of trouble is not the absence of God. In fact, sometimes it is the very sign of his nearness. The enemy wants you to believe that your pain is proof that God has abandoned you, but the truth is more powerful. The very trouble you face is the backdrop for the greatest revelation of his love. In the wilderness, when there was no food, manna rained down. In the desert, when there was no water, springs burst from the rock. In the valley of dry bones, when there was no life, breath entered. In the tomb of Lazarus, when death had won, life shouted back. Jesus doesn't just lead us to hope. He is the hope. He doesn't just point to a door. He is the door. He doesn't just provide a way out. He is the way. And when you stand before a wall too high to climb, too thick to break, too wide to go around, remember this. There's a door in that wall, and it bears the marks of nails. He was wounded so you could be healed. He was rejected so you could be accepted. He was forsaken so you could be found. That door doesn't appear when all is well. It appears when all is lost. That door doesn't open because you earned it. It opens because he paid for it. In the world system, doors open to the strong, the wealthy, the connected. But in the kingdom of God, the door opens to the desperate, the poor in spirit, the broken hearted, the weary soul. The one who knocks with trembling hands, the one who falls at his feet with nothing left to give. You see, the storms may come, the fire may burn, the flood may rise, but the door still stands, and all who enter through him will find shelter, rest, and life. Eternal, abundant, unshakable life. So when the darkness falls, when the hope seems gone, when your soul is crushed by the weight of this world, don't search for escape. Search for the door, and you will find him waiting, calling, beckoning you in. Because he is not only the hope in trouble, he is the hope through it. Jesus, the door of hope, not just in your past, not just in your future, but right here, right now. In this very moment, Jesus doesn't remove every trouble, but becomes the door through it, transforming every valley into a gateway of hope. That is not just a comforting phrase, it's a divine truth, a revelation wrapped in the mystery of the cross. It is the paradox of heaven, that the path to life is not always around the valley, but through it, and that within that valley stands a door, not made by human hands, not crafted from earthly strength, but formed from the eternal love of God, the blood of the Lamb, and the purpose that precedes all suffering. That door is not always visible when the sun is shining, when the road is smooth. No, it's in the darkness, when everything seems lost, that the door appears. And that door is Jesus. He never promised a life without storms. He never said you wouldn't walk through fire or feel the crushing weight of sorrow or endure the silence of unanswered prayers. But what he did promise was himself. He said, I am with you always. He said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. He said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And when the Son of God says he has overcome the world, it means the very worst the world can throw at you is no match for the one who walks with you through it. The hope you have is not built on the absence of trouble, but the presence of Christ in it. That is the gospel the enemy doesn't want you to understand, because if you believe that your suffering is a sign of God's absence, you'll retreat. But if you believe that your suffering is a place of God's revelation, you'll press on. You see, God does some of his greatest works not in the absence of chaos, but right in the middle of it. The Red Sea didn't part until Pharaoh's army was closing in. The fourth man didn't appear in the fire until Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were already bound and cast into the flames. Daniel saw the lions silenced only after he was thrown into their den. It's not always about escaping trouble, it's about meeting the deliverer in the midst of it. We often pray for God to open doors to escape the pain, but sometimes he becomes the door himself, a door that doesn't lead out but leads through fear, through loss, through confusion, through suffering. And on the other side of that door is not just survival, but transformation. Your valley becomes holy ground. Your tears become your testimony. Your battle becomes your breakthrough. Consider the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus knelt under the crushing weight of sorrow, blood mingling with sweat, as he cried out to the Father. That moment was not the absence of power, it was the pinnacle of surrender, and in that surrender, a door opened. Not just for Jesus, but for all of us, because on the other side of Gethsemane was the cross, and on the other side of the cross was resurrection. On the other side of death was eternal life. He didn't go around the trouble. He walked through it, and in doing so, he became the door for every one of us who would ever taste the bitterness of suffering. Hope is not always the removal of pain. Sometimes hope is the strength to endure it. The presence of God in the midst of it, the awareness that your suffering is not wasted, that your trial is not meaningless, that your midnight hour is not eternal, because even in the darkness, there is a door. Even when you cannot see it, feel it, or understand it, there is a door. When Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison, it looked like every door had closed. But the entire time, God was preparing a greater door, a door that would lead to the palace, a door that would lead to the saving of many lives. But it didn't begin in the palace. It began in the pit. When Elijah sat under the broom tree and asked God to take his life, hope seemed lost. He was drained, weary, and alone, but God sent an angel, not to deliver him from the journey, but to strengthen him for it. To say the journey is too great for you, and not as condemnation, but as invitation, to lean not on his own strength, but on God's. The bread was provided, the water was given, and Elijah rose not in his power, but in the strength of the one who meets us in the lowest places. The cave where Elijah hid was not a place of defeat. It became the place where he heard the still small voice. The door was there, whispering hope. Paul and Silas were thrown into a prison, their backs bleeding, their hands bound. They didn't see an escape, but they saw something greater. They saw the door, they began to praise, they began to worship, not after their release, but in the middle of their chains. And as they lifted their voices in the midnight hour, the earth shook. The foundations of the prison were shaken. Every door flew open, but here's the mystery. The door was already open before the earthquake. Because the real prison was not the bars, it was the despair. And when hope entered the prison cell, freedom followed. Jesus is not waiting for the trouble to pass before he shows up. He steps into the furnace, he steps into the storm, he steps into the grave, because he is not afraid of your trouble. He's not surprised by your pain. He's not distant in your suffering. He is the door, standing in the fire with you, standing in the flood with you, standing in the valley of shadows, whispering, I am with you. Not just a theological truth, but a living, breathing reality. A God who bleeds, a God who weeps, a God who enters your trouble and brings with him a hope that cannot be shaken. The world offers temporary doors, distractions, numbing escapes, but they all lead to deeper emptiness. The enemy wants you to settle for those doors, but there's only one who said, I am the door. Not just a door to heaven when you die, but a door to life here and now, to peace in the storm, to strength in the struggle, to purpose in the pain. The door is not a place, it's a person, and that person walks with you even when you can't see him, even when all you feel is silence, even when the weight of the world is too much. He walks with you because that's what shepherds do. They walk with their sheep through the valley, not around it, through it, and they don't leave them halfway. You are not abandoned in your trouble. You are not forgotten in your storm. You are not lost in your darkness. The door is right there, right where the enemy said there was no way, right where the path seemed to end, right where your strength failed. That's where he appears, and when he opens the door, no man can shut it. Not fear, not failure, not the opinions of others, not even your past. Because when Jesus becomes the door, he becomes your way through the impossible. Through the pain, through the storm, through the death of your dreams. And on the other side of that door is not just healing, it's resurrection. Not just restoration, it's transformation. You may feel like everything around you is shaking, but the door doesn't shake. He is the rock, he is the anchor, he is the unmovable gate in the midst of the flood. When you pass through the waters, they will not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, it will not consume you. Not because the fire is weak, but because the door is strong. You are not walking alone. You are walking with the one who conquered death. You are walking with the one who holds the keys of life and death. You are walking with the one who says, I am the resurrection and the life. Sometimes the door doesn't look like a door. Sometimes it looks like a cross. Sometimes it looks like loss. Sometimes it looks like delay. But always, always, it leads to life, to something deeper, stronger, more eternal than you can imagine. Because hope is not the absence of sorrow. It's the presence of God in it. And when you realize that, even your tears become sacred. Even your scars become testimonies. Even your waiting becomes worship. There is a reason the psalmist said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, and not around it. Through it, and not alone with him, because the shepherd doesn't lead his sheep into the valley to abandon them. He leads them through it because he knows what lies beyond. He knows the door is waiting. He knows the table is prepared. He knows the cup will overflow. There is no valley too dark, no prison too strong, no fire too hot, no sorrow too deep where the door cannot meet you. He is not limited by walls. He is not confined by chains. He is the door that opens where there was no way, the door that leads not only out, but through, and he walks with you right now, not when you're strong, not when you've figured it all out. But now, in your weakness, in your confusion, in your brokenness, because he is not afraid of your trouble, he transforms it, he redeems it, he walks into it and makes it holy ground, and that's the mystery of the gospel. That the very place the enemy designed to destroy you becomes the place where God reveals his glory. The very place of your greatest pain becomes the place of your greatest encounter. The valley becomes the altar. The storm becomes the sanctuary. The prison becomes the place of praise, because Jesus is not only the door out, he is the door through, and he will walk with you until the other side.